Welcome to General Principles, where we chat to the makers and creators who inspire us and explore alternative perspectives on entrepreneurship. I'm Anna McGovern, and with my dear friend Daniel Zhang,
Hola.
We speak to Emma Sánchez Andrade Smith. After working at Bridgewater and the UN, Emma was inspired to create businesses with social impact. Her latest venture and finalist at TechCrunch Disrupt, Pied Piper, is a fintech called Jefa, looking to smash the glass vault of banking for women in Latin America. In this episode, we discuss the unique needs of unbanked women and the practical guide around starting a neobank. To begin with, why don't we just give a brief, how would you describe yourself in 30-second pitch?
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here with both of you today. So my brief pitch is that I'm an entrepreneur who cares about tackling the world's biggest problems. And by that, I mean the ones that are generally facing the 99% located in parts of the world where, there's not yet big innovations being delivered. So really excited to be here and talk more about that mission of mine.
Great. And so, previously you went to Duke and LSE and you had some experience in social sciences and finance. What did you take away from your time there? And how has that applied to the way you're thinking about this problem specifically? Specifically the problem of underbanked females in Latin America.
Yeah, that's a really great question. LSE and Duke are very similar in the sense that they're both very keen on hands-on education and service learning. And by that, I mean, they want you to get out of the classroom and into the field and actually experience the problems you're learning about. So I was really grateful to have, both of those institutions as such a core part of my journey, because it really taught me that it matters to be in front of the customer you're building for. It matters to be in front of the people that you're trying to serve with your product. So I think it really shaped my journey as an entrepreneur to have that sort of mindset of, breaking down the doors and walls and actually spending time in the places where, the problems that I'm keen to solve exist. I remember early on in my time at Duke, I had a professor called Charlie Pio. And then toward the end of my time at Duke, I had another professor named Dr. Laurie Leachman. And both of them were really helpful for me on my path of basically having these, office hour sessions where they would say, prepare everything, do all of your research before doing any projects in the field. But then when you get to the field, prepare to throw everything you learned out the window. And I just thought that message was really great. It's like, learn everything you can, but also be keen to observe and learn on the ground.
Yeah, there's that quote, when you go into battle, have your battle plans, but as soon as you make contact with the enemy, they go out the window.
I love it.
Yeah. So when you're working previously, you had been doing a similar problem, right, with finance and underbanked people, but now you're doing something specifically for women in Latin America. What is the cause of why so many women in Central and Latin America are unbanked?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. So what the problem I'm currently out to solve is the fact that there's 1.5 billion people in the world without a bank account. And of those, nearly 1.4 billion are women. So what that shows us is, there's very much there's something with gender at play here. And when you look at existing solutions, for those 1.4 billion women, there's just not a lot out there because most banks and fintechs are disproportionately used by men. And this was something I saw at my last company as well, which is, what led to the idea of Jefa. And I'm happy to talk more about that later. But the thing we see is that, especially in emerging markets, women face distinct obstacles towards accessing financial services and actually do have unique financial needs. So some examples of these are that, because of the gender pay gap, women will have a harder time meeting a deposit minimum requirement for a bank. Banks have marketing channels that are designed for men. And you can think of, the classic Santander soccer jersey in this case. Banks just aren't reaching women in the spaces that they trust and are spending time in. Another obstacle is, that women shoulder caregiving duties and therefore have a harder time actually leaving the home to travel to a bank branch to set up an account. So when you pile all of these problems on top of each other, you see that, women are just vastly underserved, and we really do need a solution that's built to tackle their needs specifically and help them enter into our global economy.
Great. I think we'll dive deeper on that in a bit.
Great.
So one of the things that one of the companies that you previously worked for is Bridgewater, and Ray Dalio is quite famous, I suppose, for having this book called Principles, which is a method of acting within the corporation and how to kind of proceed through daily activities. It said that, every Bridgewater employee has one of these books. I'm wondering, has any of these principles or mental models from Ray Dalio or from any other sources influenced you in terms of how you have thought about your career?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the question, Danielle. So Ray Dalio really argues that life, management, economics, investing, everything can all be systematized into rules and understood like machines. So that's what his principles are, based off of that idea. During my orientation at Bridgewater, we spent an intensive week going through his principles. We actually had an iPad with like tutorials about the principles, why they existed, but also individually what they were and how we should implement them in our work. So I feel like I learned them like a Bible study. So there's a couple that really stuck with me. One is really straightforward. It's evolve or die. And that's very Ray Dalio style, just straight to the point. And I like that one a lot because I'm a core believer in Carol Dweck's growth mindset. This idea that we can have a fixed mindset about things and say, for example, I'm bad at math, I'll never be good at math, therefore, or I'm bad at math right now and I can learn, I can get better. And, having that mindset can help us to do anything. So I really liked that principle, evolve or die, because it very much just kind of sums up that growth mindset, idea of we can grow, and that's our best option. The second principle that stayed with me was this one, which is weigh second and third order consequences. And the idea is that often the first order consequences are the temptations that cost us what we really want and can be barriers that stand in our way to understanding, the second and third order consequences. So I really like that. It's very Bridgewater in the sense that it's very philosophical. It is something that has really stuck with me when building this company, especially, is, not just thinking about the product we're building in a first order consequence way, like we're looking to get a bank account in the hands of, these women consumers, but at a second and third order consequence level, what does that change then look like in their lives? Why do they need a bank account? Is it, then to access the financial services that they need to create a better livelihood for themselves and their families? And then, what are the consequences of that in society? So that's one that's definitely really stuck with me as well. And overarchingly, I really love the idea of living a principled life, both in business and in our personal lives, because I think it's great to have, these compasses, these sort of rules that help motivate us and move us forward.
There's a Greek saying, I think also quite popular with the Navy SEALs, that is, we don't rise to the level of our expectations, we fall to the level of our training. I suppose through your journey, have there been instances where you have been able to kind of, I guess, take a step back and then, rather than naturally react in how one would naturally just react to a sudden occurrence of something good or bad, have you kind of gone back to any of these principles, whether it's evolve and die, or thinking about second and third order consequences, or even any others? Say your husband's at Amazon, and Amazon's quite famous also for, being obsessive about the customer.
Yeah, it's a really great question. So just to rephrase, if I understand correctly, what are some of the moments where I might fall back on these principles rather than just following my gut? Yeah, right. Wanted to make sure I understood you properly there. Yeah, it's a really good one. I think one example is another principle that has stuck with me a lot is pain plus reflection equals progress, which I think is a really good formula. And that's one I've fallen back on a lot as well. And this is something we've really faced in building Jefa right now, because there's been a lot of pain points. Like we had some difficulties around launch with, regulatory barriers. We had some difficulties signing partnerships. And the interesting thing is that those moments of pain when things went wrong, but then we added reflection to the equation and thought, why did this go wrong? How can we build better systems to prevent something like this from happening in the future? How can we evaluate this as an opportunity to change and shift gears and end up, with a better partner or a better regulatory plan? It's led to progress. So, I think falling back on this principle is, like you said, it's a really great default, because then you don't end up just kind of jumping around trying to tackle things in a more chaotic or spontaneous way. You end up,
specific example. I'm really curious where you mentioned the regulations. What has been something that's gone wrong, and then you've been able to use those principles that have led you back to a solution?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let's see. One thing that recently came up was that the CNBV in Mexico, which is the regulator, they put out an announcement saying that all fintechs operating in Mexico needed to have the new fintech license. This is a problem because we don't have this. We weren't on a path to get it. In fact, only like 2 or 3 companies already have it. And we are set to launch in 2 weeks. So we saw this news and thought, oh my gosh, like this is the end of our company. And what are we going to do about that? So that was the pain moment. And then the reflection moment was us getting on the phone with our lawyers in Mexico and saying, we've seen this press release, we've seen the news that the regulators kind of cracking down. What does this mean for us? And it landed us up in a really interesting situation where we found an opportunity to do sort of co-branding with our financial service provider, where, we have their logo on our cards as well as ours now. So they are working on getting their license. They're already through this regulatory process, and we're able to lean on, the regulation that they already have. So it landed us up in a kind of cool collaborative opportunity that we definitely wouldn't have come up across and against unless this pain had come about and we had had the time to reflect on it.
So this collaboration, was this something a bank you were working with previously? Were they kind of the backing bank, or was this something that just arose because of the circumstances?
Yeah, it was someone we were already working with already. The nature of our partnership just changed slightly, and I think in the long term is useful for us because it definitely de-risks us to have this kind of setup with them. But then it's it's also really great because having the regulator say we're cracking down on fintechs made us think, wait, maybe we should get our license. And now we've started the process of getting our fintech license in Mexico. So that's really put us ahead of the game in many ways. So I'm in a way grateful that that news release did come out and that we had to react.
And so when you have, I'm always curious about how fintechs do this, but especially maybe in a sphere that is not so traditionally fintech. In London, everyone's doing a fintech, but how do you go about pairing with a bank in a market like this? How does that process even begin?
Yeah, definitely. So it's very much a common model now that there's banking as a service providers, whether those are banks or whether those are fintechs themselves, who essentially provide the rails for consumer facing or other fintechs to essentially offer the full customer experience, offer the technology in the app, and then the bank provide regulatory support or card issuance or deposit holding. So this is really exciting because I think that's why, as you said in London, I think that's why we have this boom of fintechs, is because behind that there's this layer of a boom of fintech, enablers, these either banks or fintechs who are providing banking as a service. So the way we've kind of gotten set up with our partner in Mexico, so they're a fintech enabler, meaning they're sort of a middleman between us and a bank. And it's actually a pretty straightforward agreement. They already have a pretty great setup in place to be able to kind of sign an offering and integrate with us through an API and provide us with the core banking infrastructure that we need. And they actually already support more than 70% of the fintechs in the Mexican market. So they're an excellent partner for us. And I think that's such an exciting layer, the as a service layer that we're seeing not only in fintech, but in a lot of different industries that are kind of opening.
Fintech in South America currently, and maybe not for women specifically, but because I'm sure currently people listening, maybe we should go back a bit, right? You are a fintech bank for women, specifically in Latin and Central America. Are there other banks doing something specifically for other subgroups in fintech? And let's talk more about why you even began with women.
Yeah, definitely. It's something you see a lot in Latin America, that vertical banks are becoming more common. There's in Mexico a bank for gig economy workers. You see, banks for, for small business owners. And I think this is very much the future of fintech too, is, banks are kind of soulless entities that are meant to serve the average person, but none of us are really the average person. We all have different parts of our identity that might be stronger than others. So I'm really excited about this verticalization of banking, where, there's going to be banks for different groups that will better serve our needs. So the reason you asked why we landed on women?
Yeah, so I get that they're the biggest proportion of, underbanked people, but why women in South America? What makes them different to women in other developing economies?
Yeah, that's an exciting question for us. So there's a lot happening with women in Latin America, specifically women in Mexico, that we're really excited about. So in Mexico, you see that 54% of women are unbanked. And of the women who do have a bank account, globally, 75% of women are dissatisfied with their bank. And in Mexico, this results in very low usage and more than 10% of accounts being inactive. So it's definitely a big problem in the sense that, there's lots of customers to serve. And then you have this interesting opportunity where most women in Mexico participate in the labor force. So they are earning money and they're looking for a way to be able to, manage that. So we're really excited about this opportunity. I think there's, sometimes a misconception that, women, there might not be an opportunity with women. Like, is there a reason they're underserved, or is there a reason they're excluded? But, my thinking is just that no one's quite reached them yet. What we see is globally about 90% of fintech entrepreneurs are men. So naturally, they're building solutions for customers they know and understand. So we need more fintech entrepreneurs that are women to kind of go out and tackle this opportunity, because women are great customers. They control 80% of household spending, which in Latin America is a $9 trillion opportunity alone. So we're really excited to kind of get after this, because, it's very much a dream environment for us to be serving customers here.
So you mentioned maybe that they haven't been targeted, that maybe because all, or at least most fintech entrepreneurs are male, that they don't have the same perspective. What is the main challenge with targeting women? You mentioned they don't maybe have access to a physical bank, but beyond the things you've already mentioned, is it levels of financial education? Do they have specific needs that are difficult to deal with? What are the problems that you're really trying to solve here?
Yeah, definitely. I think the way we like to think about the differentiation for the business is that there's 4 different prongs. There's the data, the financial service offering, the product, and the distribution channels. And we try to essentially deliver a solution to women in all 4 of those areas, because we see that's where the problem, is really the greatest. So starting from data, what we see is that because most banks and neobanks are just proportionally used by men, and the majority of them around the world don't collect gender disaggregate data, we actually know very little about women's financial lives and what kind of solutions they need. So our first goal at Jefa is, how can we build the largest database of information about women's financial lives and be able to, then tailor our product, eventually build a credit scoring model based on all of that data. The second thing is the financial services themselves. So what we see is that personal finance for women is very much not personal. It's very much something that women do in community. And this is particularly true in emerging markets. So what we're trying to do is to actually innovate on how the financial services that we're offering are even built. So one example of this is, go ahead.
Yeah, so let me get this straight. I want to go back a bit. The overall vision is to serve these underbanked populations. In terms of the specific things you want to be able to do, because surely you want to serve them so they can go and, have more. What is the goal? Describe the vision a bit more broader.
Yeah, I guess more broadly, the idea is to empower women in their financial lives. So that could look like, investing, building wealth. That could look like, saving. That could be preparing for emergencies. We like to think about, the vision in three categories. It's one, the day-to-day management of expenses, two, building resiliency for hard times, and three, creating opportunities for wealth. And that's what, we're trying to build this product and the company around.
And of those, which one do you think is the most impactful?
Yeah, I think of them as stepping stones. So, you start with the day-to-day and you make your way up to the opportunities to build wealth. I think the day-to-day is actually far more impactful than people realize. I think in fintech, we can tend to get, really carried away and excited about more sophisticated services like investing platforms and robo-advisors. But for a lot of these women who are underserved in the sense that they've never even had a bank account before, they've never even just had a debit card to manage their finances with, that's really exciting, just that very first stepping stone. So that's the one that we're really focusing on at first is, getting that right.
And talking about basic day-to-day things, I know one of the programs you're kind of offering as part of the rewards, which was kind of surprising when you're used to the kind of rewards traditional banks offer, is sanitation products, right? I mean, I know in the UK, there's like a problem with period poverty where some women don't have access to sanitation products, and this can like hold them back from different opportunities. Is this a big problem in Latin America? Is this a big need in the community specifically? Like, how does rewarding customers potentially with sanitary pads have an impact on your company?
Yeah, so this is something we've seen our customers getting really excited about, which is great. We call this our It Pays to Be a Woman program. And this comes out of our, bigger picture question, which is how do we design a world that is built for women? And you may have actually read Caroline Perez's book. She's from the UK as well, called Invisible Women. But she basically unpacks how, we have this big data bias in the world, and our world is very much built by men and for men. So at Jefa, we're trying to reimagine, what would it look like, this world that's really built for women first? Like, would stay-at-home mothers and caregivers still be unpaid labor? Like, would feminine hygiene products still be considered luxury goods? Would identical products for women be priced 40% higher than those for men? There's a lot wrong in the world that has to be fixed. And we thought starting with this points program is a good way to start, because it's, not only from a philosophical angle, telling our customers that, they shouldn't be charged more for being a woman, and like trying to get that message across of like being a woman is actually a good thing and we want to reward you for that. But also from a really practical perspective, it's a way to create loyalty and engagement among our customers and, really keep them coming back.
Do you have any data on the impact that this program has had on your company so far?
Not yet. So we're rolling this out in about a month and a half, but I'll circle back when we do. We're excited. So far from our prototype testing, we've seen a lot of excitement. This is one of the features that customers are most excited about. So we can't wait to see how it looks in practice.
I think let's go back a little bit. You mentioned your company is helping a lot of South American women have a bank account. And the second, third things or pillars that you are trying to establish for them once they do have a bank account is to build up resiliency and wealth. In terms of once these women have a bank account and they're saving money, how is Jefa thinking about how to build up that actual wealth aspect?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you. So when it comes to wealth, I think there's a huge opportunity here. That the interesting thing we see in interviews with customers is that whether they run a fruit stand on the side of the road or work at an executive at a tech company, they say that they want to build greater wealth and they're excited about opportunities to learn how to do that. So there's two prongs to that for us. One is the financial literacy component, and the second is actually the practical investing opportunities. The financial literacy component is something we're building in the app as well as outside the app. In the app, it's called the Jefa Hub, and we've essentially curated, blog posts, videos, workshops for customers to be able to pop in there and interact and learn actively. And then outside the app, we're also hosting, post-COVID, we'll be hosting events. And right now we host things on Instagram Live, and we curate content around, how to build wealth and good financial practices. And then the other prong of that is investing solutions. So our model here is to essentially work with third-party partners who offer innovative opportunities for customers to grow their wealth, through investing in many different kinds of ways. And then our business model essentially is that we take a commission when our customers go and use that service, but we'd be able to directly offer that in the app. So any Jefa user could, access this partner and start investing with them. This is because for us, it's tackling a bit too much to actually build an investing platform ourselves, but we think doing this through a third-party partner will be a way to, offer our customers the opportunity to start to grow their wealth through investing.
What type of opportunities do you think women in South America could look into? So I know, for example, right now with, say, the Western markets, it's quite heated, and a lot of people are investing into products that are quite risky. For example, say cryptocurrencies, where they're looking for really high returns. And because of like the stimulus package that is happening within the US, within Canada, people are quite flush with cash. But I suppose that in a lot of the developing countries, that might not necessarily be the case. What do you think a person within, say, South America could look into?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. So what we're looking at is helping our customers invest into global stock markets, whether that's stocks, bonds, or ETFs. We have a partner who hopefully will come through to help us be able to do this. And the whole idea there is kind of twofold. Is one, to be able to open up opportunities to invest, beyond Mexico. And then the second is to offer, more stable long-term investment opportunities as well. I think in Mexico, there's already some interesting, maybe shorter time frame investment options. There's crypto starting to come into the market there, but we're interested in how we can also help our customers invest in, potentially more, sustainable growth, stocks, bonds, and ETFs.
But do you think there's any, I guess, risk in terms of investing into, say, so what I'm thinking is that for a lot of like developing countries, the main driver of a lot of wealth is through having a high savings account. But at the moment, because of like how little interest is provided, a lot of people go for more risky investments. And do you think that could potentially be a problem for, I guess, South American women or South American people looking into like very heated global stock markets?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And it's something we see a lot because women in Mexico specifically do have lower levels of financial literacy, than men in Mexico, but also than many people globally. So, it's something that we take very seriously, is the fact that if we, are offering investment opportunities into the global stock market, how do we inform our customers that, this is an opportunity, but it's also a risk, and what the risks are that are associated with that. So, my big philosophy is we should provide access. Like everything with Jefa should be about providing access to opportunities and then letting our customers decide. But also, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with giving someone access to, a way you could also lose a lot of money, and making sure our customers are fully educated before going into that is a huge part of our mission. We also do want to, on interest, we do want to offer interest generating savings accounts, but we haven't figured out the right partner for that yet. So that's probably a bit down the line.
Interesting. So education seems to be like the core component as to how to navigate the wealth building aspects of the fintech business that Jefa is running. And another question on, I guess, financial literacy and women is that I think, in my perspective, at least from the Asian world, a lot of the women outside of Western cultures, they tend to be full-time stay-at-home mothers. And a lot of those women, sometimes they hold the household purse. I'm curious as to if you've identified any differences between a stay-at-home mother versus a working mother in terms of how they manage their own personal savings. Why not, like, say, a shared bank account? Is there a reason for creating a more specific women-driven banking system?
You mean why not a shared bank account between, for example, the father and the mother
Exactly, like a family bank account.
Yeah, that's something we've actually looked a lot into, the shared account, not only for partners, but also for children, for minors, because what you see with stay-at-home moms is that stay-at-home mothers, they're often looking for ways to help manage their children's finances as well, because even, especially in Mexico, even when you have a mother who has a son or daughter who's 21 or 25, they're very likely to still be going for their mother to ask for a loan, ask for some spending money. So what we're working on is creating joint accounts where our Jefas can essentially open up another card for their son or daughter to be able to allocate money to them and manage that through our accounts. So that's definitely something we see that's really common among stay-at-home mothers, is that they're very inward looking, in the sense that they're not necessarily going out and spending a ton of money shopping. Most of them actually spend their money within 30 minutes of home. They're mostly looking at how they're managing their sons and daughters' spending. So we want to help them find ways to do that better.
One thing I don't hear fintechs talk super openly about is really the business model. How are you planning for Jefa to make money? Are there assumptions around this model in this market that you haven't really validated yet?
Yeah, it's a really great point. You don't hear this very much with fintechs. So my inspiration when it comes to creating a business model is Tesla. I think if you look at the way a Tesla car is monetized, it's not just selling the car, it's like selling the software that's $10,000 to be able to have autopilot when it's available in a few years. They also sell, it's $400 to get a rear back seat heater in the car. They sell all of these like software additional touch points. And I think that's such an interesting way to think about monetization, because it's not just straightforward. I guess the fintech parallel would be, it's not just going to the bank and paying to open an account or paying a monthly fee. It's thinking about what the other touch points are that the customer has that they might be willing to pay for. So this is something we've been thinking a lot about, and we've been running willingness to pay tests, trying to understand all of the moments that the customer interacts with the app, what would they be willing to pay for? We had a lot of interesting results. We saw that 40% of our customers would be willing to pay more than $3 for a debit card. And this is something we didn't expect, because most debit cards in the Mexican market are free. So we thought, wow, this is interesting. But it's partly because we have a card that was designed by our community, and it's a really unique design. And they said, yeah, we'd be willing to pay for this. They were also willing to pay for
design. It's a unique physical design, or somehow this card has unique properties.
Yeah, it's just a unique physical design. So one of our customers designed it. It's a really beautiful kind of art piece. And they said, yeah, we'd pay extra for that. So we thought that was interesting. So definitely, I guess the bigger picture is that monetization will really change and evolve for us. And I hope that down the road, there's, up to 10 or 15 points even where we're able to make money from our customers. But we also want to do this in a way that's not exploitative, that's optional, and that the main core offering of Jefa is free and accessible to anyone. And then if you want to pay for, premium perks, you can do this through the app.
So, you mentioned one of those touch points being a physical card. What are some other of these touch points that you think you can monetize, or that people are willing to potentially pay for in this market?
Yeah, so the other one is the loyalty program. It seems 40% or more of our customers are also willing to pay for that. Another one is our Tandas feature, which is a rotating credit and savings program. The other, more traditional ways that we can monetize is through commission from strategic partners, like I mentioned, with this investing partner, potentially through interchange fees when someone spends on their card, through foreign exchange when we do a cross-border payment eventually. And eventually when we start lending, we'll also make money through interest income. So there's quite a few of these different touch points here. And I think the big case we always try to make to our investors is, even though we are a mission-driven company, we're also a company that can make money. And this is a really big opportunity for that.
Are there any of those touch points that you wouldn't see for other companies because they're not dealing with this specific market? Like, are there any touch points that are specific to do with women or specifically to do with Latin America?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Tandas is one of them, the rotating credit and savings group. You wouldn't see that in any other fintech. In fact,
but can you explain exactly what that is? I'm a bit unclear.
Yeah, definitely. So Tandas are essentially a rotating credit and savings program, which is really common, not only in Mexico, but in many parts of the world. Around the world, there's actually 200 different names for the Tandas concept, which is essentially that you gather, say 12 of your friends and you meet every month of the year and all put in $50 into a pot. And at the end of the month, one person takes that pot home. And, for the people at the beginning of the year, that serves as sort of a zero interest loan. And for the people who receive the pot at the end of the year, that serves as sort of, a community-based savings program. So this is really interesting. In Mexico, at any given time, more than 30% of the population is actively involved in a tanda, and this is mostly women. So, we've never seen tandas and this sort of program in a neobank solution. So, not only is it a really groundbreaking offering that we can have, but it's an opportunity for monetization that, our other fintechs in the market wouldn't be able to use.
And they wouldn't be able to use just because most women, the predominant users of this kind of financial service is women.
Yeah, exactly. I think they could build tandas. They may not have as much success monetizing on them because of the way the demographic looks versus the demographic of their users.
So when you're kind of pitching to investors, when you think about the main financial points that you're going to be trying to, it must be hard when you're still trying to validate which of these points are people willing to pay for and which aren't they. How do you go about predicting, how much you can make?
Yeah, definitely. The thing we pay close attention to is our CAC, our customer acquisition cost, because as long as that makes sense in relation to our LTV, the lifetime value of the customer, then I think that's the main metric we like to highlight for them and pay close attention to. And my goal is that at Jefa, we always have a payback period for our CAC of like between 3 to 6 months maximum, so that we know that, if we pay $1 for a customer in a month, we make $3 on them by month 3 or 4. And, we've paid back the cost and then made some money on that as well. I think those unit economics are the signs of a really strong business. And my hope is that we can have strong unit economics from very early on. I think sometimes with fintechs, you see they don't monetize until they're much bigger or much more well-funded, but I really think it's possible to build a sustainable business from day one.
With what you're doing, the way that you're making money, is it through, I suppose, more premium offerings? Say, for example, you mentioned a nicer design card, so that they're nice to have features rather than necessary features?
Yeah, exactly. So I think the main areas we'll make money for the first year or so of operations will be interchange fees, the commission from strategic partners, and then the premium offerings. And the reason I like the way that's set up as well is because then, like you said, we can still offer our solution for free. We don't have deposit minimum requirements and a lot of these barriers that women will face. We'll be able to, actually get attract a lot of customers. And then once the customers are with us, they can decide, how much they want to be spending on additional services.
Yeah, this makes a lot more sense. And I suppose that how you're going about it, there's also less conflict of interest in between Jefa making money through fees and the consumers and customers themselves kind of paying a lot for these fees rather than saving money. So one of the other questions that I have on top of that is, in terms of helping women save money, you're also building a community. You're building that financial literacy aspect where the women are also coming in to be able to learn a lot more about how they can manage their savings and their wealth. How have you gone about building this community at Jefa? What have you thought about in terms of what needs to be done to create such a community?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a big part of our mission. And going back to what I said before is, community is so important for women when it comes to finance. So our goal is, to be a bank on the side, but to be a community first, and to have that be what our customers know us for is, the community that we can provide to them. So we think about kind of two core values to our community. One is women's empowerment in general, and the second is empowerment, for a financial livelihood. And we try to create content around that intersection. So on our Instagram and social media, we have about 20,000 followers, and we essentially create content about, empowering women in their lives to, get a pay raise or, achieve your dreams, start your business, and actionable items around that. And then also in the financial livelihood, we give a lot of tips around like how to build saving habits and what investments they might be thinking about, or how to create a budget. So that's kind of the content we create. And as I mentioned before, we try to do this both internally in the app and also externally, which is on our social media, but also at large in the communities that we're serving. And I think as we scale, there's a lot of opportunity to bring together our Jefas in person and really create a movement around this.
I think it's very powerful when you're able to gather people together to not only, I guess, consume content and be the audience, but also to interact with each other. So you mentioned the aspect where once I think things kind of settle back again, you might do more things in person. Have you thought about how you might connect different groups of women together for that sense of community and learning?
Yeah, definitely. And this is something we've already been working a lot on with our Instagram lives. We try to bring together different members of our community who have, things to share, workshops to give, and start to create conversations. We also in the app want to create a community feel where something like the Tandas feature, where it's this group where women save and access credit together. We want to eventually be able to, we're starting by allowing women to do that with groups of friends that they already have, but we want to eventually add in strangers so we can introduce women who may have similar interests to be able to join these savings groups together. So we're really excited about, not only doing that, building community, as you were saying, linking people together through our social media and in-person events, but also, in the very financial services they're using in the app, helping them build relationships as well.
Interesting. So it seems like it's quite a multifaceted approach what you're doing at Jefa. It's not just a company, it's a community, it's education, there's quite a lot.
I think that's the interesting thing you see with women too. And that's why, banks just aren't really meeting their needs, is because women are very multifaceted in the sense that they're really looking for a solution that has community in it, that has savings opportunities in it, has opportunities, just to do day-to-day management of expenses. And we want to make sure we are tackling, since we really want to differentiate ourselves for women, we want to make sure we're really tackling this in a multifaceted way. So that's our aim. Might be that we're taking on too much. Time will tell.
Well, I suppose the only missing element for you guys and for a lot of like digital banks is the physical in-person branch retail or like, pop-up stores. Have you thought about how you can kind of recreate that experience? I mean, I don't know about what it's like in South America, but I know for like my mom, she quite enjoys going into the bank itself to be able to like interact with the bank tellers, to build up a relationship with the bank manager. Has that been something which you have considered at Jefa?
Yeah, this is a really big one, Danielle, and I'm glad you brought it up. There's a really big opportunity for these in-person touch points with Jefa, because what we see in Mexico is that because most women in the country are unbanked, they're managing their money in cash. And therefore, a lot of digital banking solutions and banks as well, women customers will have a difficult time getting their cash in. They'll think, I have, this $20 equivalent in my hand, but how do I actually put that into this app that's in my phone? Like, what's the practical process? So what we've been working on is we've built a network of 30,000 agents across Mexico that are essentially like gas stations, Walmart, superstores, and smaller shops where women can go and deposit their cash. And then that cash will be topped up into their Jefa account. And then we're also working, that's through a partnership. We're also working on building our own single owner merchant network where women can be verified through our app, like whether you're a seamstress or you have a fruit stand on the side of the road, those women can be verified to be able to be agents for top up and cash in and cash out as well, which I think serves two purposes for us. It serves the really practical purpose of helping unbanked customers, actually enter into the digital economy in a way that they would trust and understand. But it also creates, like you said, that physical presence for us where we can, train these women and use them as Jefa ambassadors, as the voice of Jefa on the ground, so that customers feel, that there's a face to this ambiguous digital brand.
Amazing. That sounds pretty impressive. With those women as well, you mentioned the seamstress and so forth, are they also being paid by Jefa in terms of, say, commissions to do that service?
Yes, exactly. That's the model. So it would then be in their best interest as well. And they could kind of use this as an additional component of their existing business, to be able to be a cash in and cash out point for us.
So it really sounds like that Jefa has not only education, not only community, but also a bunch of partners. How have you gone about creating that first kind of partnership? Is it just like a pitch to women who are seamstresses or in such roles where they can take up this new job and get paid? Or have you done a certain outreach to be able to connect with such women and build this partnership?
Yeah, so the way we have our 30,000 agents right now is through a partner, and they have built that merchant network already. So essentially the pitch was to them, at a higher level of how can we work together to be able to have our users actually be able to put cash into our accounts, which fits their mission as well, and gives them business for all of their agents. So that's I guess the way we've started. Jefa as a whole is trying to go at a very high level to strategic partners that are already doing the kinds of things we want to be doing on a more granular level, partnering with them and kind of starting out, and then eventually getting down to the more granular level where we can actually go out in the field ourselves and onboard these seamstresses, onboard the people at the fruit stand. I think a lot of that will thankfully be able to be digital as well. I think there's a lot we can digitize in this process to make it more seamless as well.
That's super cool. I hadn't really thought so much about, the physical on the ground aspect. So now just to wrap up, I'm going to ask a bunch of, rapid fire questions on a couple topics for you to quickly give short 1 word, 1 sentence answers. So favorite female entrepreneur?
Jessica Jackley, she's on our board.
Favorite startup other than your own?
Grace Health. Digital Women's Health Clinic.
And what words of wisdom have really impacted you?
I'll go with the principle, evolve or die.
And last one, tacos or pizza?
Tacos.
Good. That's a good thing you're starting as a Latin American fintech then.
That's the whole reason we're building this.
Exactly. Access to tacos.
Well, Thanks a lot for your time, Emma. It was a real pleasure speaking to you today.
Thank you so much, Daniel and Anna. This has been a great conversation. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, looking forward to see how Jefa's rollout goes.
Yes, our team is amazing. They're working hard while I hang out here and do podcasts. So